just moved to the beautiful state of Vermont and wondering how to drive legally? Well, don't let the Department of Motor Vehicles be your first challenge in the Green Mountain State. Moving is already stressful enough, right? The last thing you need is to get tangled up in administrative red tape. So stick with this explainer, follow these steps, and we'll get you on the road smoothly and legally.
Okay, let's look at our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the basics of license transfer, gathering your essential documents, prepping for that DMV visit, the actual steps to complete the transfer, some common challenges and solutions, and finally, your final steps and tips.
Section 1. The basics of license transfer. Let's look at the statutory obligations you face when you first establish residency.
So you're actually on a strict statutory clock here. If you're a standard driver, you've got a mandatory 60-day window right after establishing residency to transfer your license. But hey, pay close attention to the fine print here. If your out-of-state license expires before those 60 days are up, well, your deadline shrinks. It's whichever of those two conditions happens first, that is your absolute deadline. And if you hold a commercial driver's license, or CDL, federal oversight means you literally only have 30 days to make the transfer.
Next up, you've got to pick your credential level, and this depends entirely on your travel habits and federal compliance needs. You aren't just picking a piece of plastic, you're picking your level of clearance. The standard Real ID is fully compliant for domestic flights, which, by the way, becomes mandatory by May 2025. Then there's the driver's privilege card. This one is fantastic for residents who really just need to drive and don't want or need to establish federal lawful status. And finally, the Enhanced Driver's License, or EDL, acts as a federally approved border crossing document for land and sea travel to places like Canada or Mexico. Just keep in mind, that one absolutely requires proof of U.S. citizenship.
Moving on to Section 2, gathering the essential documents. State and federal security regulations are pretty strict, so you definitely cannot just walk into the DMV empty-handed.
Let's dive into our checklist and see how to build your application. First things first, you need physical original documents or certified copies. Please, no photocopies or faxes. They will be rejected instantly at the desk. You're going to need a valid primary ID, like an unexpired passport or a certified birth certificate. You also must prove your social security number. An original card is best for sure, but a W-2 or a pay stub with your full name and at least the last 4 digits of your SSN will also work. Just remember, your SSN document absolutely must match your current full legal name. Now, gathering those 2 proofs of Vermont residency is absolutely crucial to show you actually live where you say you do. Grab a recent utility bill, a signed lease agreement, or maybe a homeowner's insurance policy. But here is a very important note. P.O. boxes are strictly prohibited for verifying your residential address. You can use a P.O. box for your mailing address, sure, but the DMV requires a physical street or highway address to prove you are an actual resident of the state.
All right, Section 3, preparing for the DMV visit. It's time to strategize.
You really want to tackle these steps beforehand to make your visit as frictionless as possible. Step 1 is printing and completing Form VL021, which is just your standard license application. Having this all filled out before you even walk through the doors, that saves you and the clerk a ton of time. And while a lot of offices do accept walk-ins, appointments are highly recommended. In fact, they're absolutely mandatory if you need any kind of physical examinations.
Now, picking the wrong branch can literally cost you your whole day. Vermont's DMV network is broken up into full-service hubs and smaller satellite branches. If you want an original enhanced driver's license, you must visit a full-service branch, like the ones in Montpelier or South Burlington. Why? Because first-time enhanced licenses require specialized citizenship verification equipment that satellite branches like St. Albans or Dummerston just don't have. Those smaller offices, they are restricted to processing renewals only.
Let's hit Section 4, steps to completing the transfer. This is what actually happens when you sit down at the desk.
I know the biggest anxiety for most people is whether they're going to have to retake their driving test. Good news! For most of you with a valid out-of-state license, or even one that expired less than 3 years ago, you get a pass on the heavy testing. You'll just need to pass a quick standard vision test right there at the counter. However, if your previous license has been expired for 3 years or more, you are essentially starting from scratch. That means an eye exam, the written knowledge test, and yes, the physical road skills test.
And of course, we can't forget the financial side of things. $62 is your standard fee for a 4-year Real ID compliant driver's license. If you just want a 2-year license, that drops to $39. But thankfully, the state has actually built in some excellent financial relief for certain residents.
Vermont actually shows a really strong commitment to supporting vulnerable populations. Under state law, folks receiving supplemental security income, Social Security disability income, or those with documented disabilities qualify for drastically reduced rates. We're talking just $20 for a 4-year license. Plus, former foster youth under the age of 23 are completely exempt from these fees. It's honestly a great example of the state accommodating people who might otherwise face a financial barrier to legally driving.
But watch out for this pesky little surcharge introduced in May of 2026. The Vermont DMV applies a mandatory 2.3% processing fee to all credit or debit card payments, both online and in office. So if you want to avoid giving away extra money, just bring cash or a check with you to your in-person appointment. If you're doing things online, you can use a direct ACH bank transfer to bypass the surcharge entirely.
Section 5. Common Challenges and Solutions. Let's keep you out of the administrative weeds and avoid any extra DMV trips.
So, what if the name on your IDs doesn't match your current legal name? This is incredibly common, usually because of a marriage, a divorce, or an adoption, and it stops a lot of applications dead in their tracks. If the name on your birth certificate or passport doesn't perfectly match the name on file with the Social Security Administration, the DMV system is going to throw an error.
To fix this, you absolutely must provide linking documents. These are certified legal records, again, no photocopies, that prove a continuous chain of legal name changes from your birth name to your current name. And here's a pro tip straight from the official Vermont DMV account on Reddit: get your name completely updated and correct before or during this initial transfer. Because if you decide to fix a misspelled or outdated name on your license later on, you're going to get hit with a $24 replacement fee.
Now, here is another massive roadblock: the interstate reciprocity barrier. When you apply, the Vermont DMV automatically queries a nationwide tracking system called the National Driver Register. The bottom line here? You absolutely cannot bypass an out-of-state suspension or revocation by simply moving to Vermont. If you're privileged to drive as suspended in your old state, that acts as an absolute bar to getting a license in Vermont until you legally resolve the issue back home. No way around it.
All right, Section 6, final steps and tips. You are almost at the finish line.
So, you've paid the fee and passed the eye exam. Before you even leave the desk, you'll walk out with a temporary paper credential. This makes you perfectly legal to drive immediately. But keep in mind, this paper credential is valid for a maximum of 30 days, and it will absolutely not get you on a commercial airplane or across a federal border. Your permanent, high-security plastic card is manufactured off-site and typically arrives in your mailbox in about 20 days.
And please, don't forget your car needs transferring too. You've got 60 days to register your imported vehicle using Form VD-119. You're going to need the original out-of-state title, and within 15 days of registering, your car must pass a Vermont safety inspection. Most importantly, make sure to bring the original purchase invoice or proof you paid sales tax in your old state. Vermont assesses a purchase and use tax on vehicles, but they'll actually deduct the tax you already paid elsewhere to prevent you from being double taxed. Pretty sweet, right?
Navigating state bureaucracy is practically a rite of passage when you move to a new home. But as a quick disclaimer, rules do change, so always verify these procedures with your local Vermont DMV or a legal advisor. So what's the one administrative hurdle that always catches you off guard when you move? Share your own DMV survival stories down below. Thanks so much for joining this explainer, and I hope you absolutely enjoy living in the beautiful Green Mountain State.